There's a man in bright green boots lying on the rocks just ahead of you. He hasn't moved in over 20 years. And in about a minute, you are going to step over him. You're in the death zone, the top of Mount Everest, the one place on Earth where your body genuinely cannot keep you alive. Above 8,000 meters, there is only about a third of the oxygen there is at sea level. From the second you arrive, you are dying. The only real question is how fast. You have maybe 16 hours up here, probably less, and the mountain has left warnings all the way to the top. You just have to survive long enough to understand them. Every part of you was built for thick, low-altitude air. Up here, that air is gone. Your blood thickens, your muscles start eating themselves, and your brain begins to swell. And still, you keep climbing, because the summit is right there. That pull has a name, summit fever, and it has killed far more people than the cold ever has. So, the man in the green boots. Back in 1996, he was a climber chasing the exact summit you are. A blizzard caught him out in the open. He crawled into this little limestone cave to hide from the wind, and he sat down to rest. He never stood back up. For years, climbers used him as a landmark. When you reach green boots, you're nearly there. A dead man became a road sign. And he has one thing to teach you. The mountain doesn't need to throw you off a cliff. It just needs you to sit down. Up here, resting and dying look exactly the same. 10 years later, another climber stopped near that same cave. His name was David Sharp. He was still alive. And that day, around 40 people climbed past him on their way to the top and left him there. Not because they were monsters, because at this altitude, you barely have enough air to save yourself. That's the first brutal rule of the death zone. Up here, nobody is coming to help you. There is barely enough of you left to help yourself. Hour by hour, your body is shutting down. This is hypoxia, your brain and muscles starving for oxygen. The air simply won't hand over. Near the summit, you need around 10 full breaths just to take a single step. Let that sink in. Climbing Everest is basically a 12-hour panic attack that you signed up for. Your lungs go next. They start filling with fluid, a condition called hypoxia. You are standing on top of the world, slowly drowning on dry land in the sky. Then your brain swells inside your skull. They call it hypoxia. And a swelling brain does not make good choices. You start making terrible decisions and feeling fantastic about them. Climbers up here have pulled off their gloves and coats in -40. Some have calmly tried to walk off the edge of the mountain because they decided they were going home. Now for the part nobody warns you about. The line. On a rare clear weather day, hundreds of people try to summit at once. In 2019, more than 300 climbers stacked up into a single human traffic jam, right here in the death zone. So picture it. You are dying by the minute, your oxygen tank is draining, and you are standing in a queue, waiting, for hours, to take a photo on a rock. People died in that line, not from a fall, not an avalanche, just standing still, running out of air, waiting for their turn at the top. And while you wait, you see her. Climbers call her Sleeping Beauty. She was one of the strongest climbers on the mountain, one of the first women ever to reach this summit with no bottled oxygen at all. But on the way down, her body finally gave out. She collapsed just below the top. Other climbers found her, still alive, and simply could not carry her. They had to leave her and keep descending to survive. Her warning is the cruelest of them all. The summit is not the finish line. It is the halfway point, and the mountain saves its very best work for the way down. Because here's the truth the brochures skip right over. Most people who die on Everest die after they have already reached the top. They burn everything getting up there. The fever finally lets go, and then they turn around with no oxygen, no daylight, and nothing left in the tank for the longest, deadliest walk down on Earth. So now you reach your moment. The summit is maybe an hour above you, but you're behind schedule, your oxygen is nearly gone, and the smart, trained, sensible move is to turn around right now. This close, with the top in plain sight. Almost nobody does. That is summit fever. That is how this graveyard keeps filling. Say you make the right call. You turn around. You start down while you still have air and daylight left. That one decision is the entire difference between a story and a statue. On the way down, you pass them all again. Green boots, Sleeping Beauty, the bright jackets scattered across the slope that climbers grimly nicknamed Rainbow Valley. Not a valley of flowers, a valley of people. There are more than 200 bodies on Everest. Almost none of them will ever come home. Not because nobody cares, because dragging a frozen body out of the death zone can cost $70,000 and can kill the people sent to do it. So they stay, forever, exactly where they fell. That is why the mountain is lined with the dead. They were never warnings the mountain placed there on purpose. They are simply the people who did not turn around in time. So, could you survive the death zone of Mount Everest? Only if you can do the single hardest thing a human brain can do up here. Walk away from the summit, with it right in front of your face, because the cold math says live. The cold doesn't kill you. The fall doesn't kill you. Your own ambition does. There is a man in bright green boots lying on the rocks just behind you now. He chased the same summit you did. He only forgot the one rule that actually matters up here. The top is optional. Getting home is not. And if a frozen mountain can do all of that to a human body in a single day, wait until you feel what the hottest place on Earth does to you. Could you survive the desert? That one is next.